Hello everyone, welcome to the Bluebook Records. So in rule number 4, we're talking about short citation forms. And in particular this id and supra and hereinafter. So short citation forms in this section refer to short citations in general. If you want information on specific short forms, you'll have to go to the specific rule in the specific citation type. So for example, cases, you'll want to look at Rule 10, constitutions, Rule 11, statutes, Rule 12, and so on. Books, Rule 15, periodicals, Rule 16, internet material, Rule 18, and you can see in the Blue Book and Rule 4 the different rules you have to consult for some specific citations. So now moving on to id. So we use id in citation sentences or clauses for any kind of authority except if you're doing an internal cross-reference. So we only use id, though, when the immediately preceding authority contains only one authority. If it has two, we can't use id. And as the Blue Book notes, the period after the id is always italicized. There is a difference. If you're curious, you can write id with a period and make it something, like a 400 size font, and then highlight the period and make it italicized and not italicized. And you can see the difference. I believe there might be a difference in size slightly, and of course the placement of the period is slightly different when it's italicized. So look at section 4.1, and there are examples. So one point to make is that if the subsequent citation and you're using id varies from the previous citation, usually this means there's a different page number, that we indicate that. And there are some examples in Rule 4.1. So for footnote 1, we have a case, and the pin site is page 562. In footnote 2, we want to use that same case, and so we say id at, and we want to use 563, so we put 563. Footnote 3 has a citation to a section of the code. We have cited the code, and we say see id, section 1981. Note that there's no at, right? When we use a section symbol. In the same footnote, we can use id. So in footnote 5, we have a source and then separated by a semicolon. We use id to point to a different section of that same source. Footnote 6 and 7. On 7, we are citing the previous footnote at a different section. And footnote 8, we have cited a book, or it looks like a horn book possibly. And again, we are using CID with section numbers. The next two refer to as we can tell since footnote 10, there's a 3 in front, so that is indicating that this is a volume, one piece of a volume. So when we use id in this situation, and this is footnote 11, we indicate a different volume with 1, id, at, and then page number. And then if they're indicating a different edition with a different year as well. Footnote 12 and 13, just another example. Footnote 14, there's an example of a supra that we have. And then 15, we can use id when we want to refer to that same supra indication. So again, id can't be used when the previous footnote has 2 citations. This would be ambiguous. Are we referring to the first source or the second source or the third source? So we can't use an id if the previous footnote has 2 or more sources. So this is footnote 16. We can see that we have, looks like 3 different sources. In the next footnote, if we want to refer to one of those sources, we have to use, we can't say CID at 570, right? Even though we could infer, because of the page number, that 570 refers to the case, because 570, well, it could also refer to the one of the law review articles. But we can't use id. So we have to cite back directly to the case or use a supra. So the one exception would be if a citation happens in a parenthetical, then it's okay to use id. So for example, in footnote 18, they cite to a case in a parenthetical, clarify that they're quoting from another case. It's okay to use id in that situation. So id can't be used to indicate or refer to an internal cross-reference. What you need to do is just repeat that internal cross-reference. So if you look at the example in footnote 24 and 25, the supertext accompanying note 2, this is an internal cross-reference. You can't say id after that. You just simply cut and paste. So now supra and hereinafter. So we can only use supra and hereinafter. We should probably just mention supra and hereinafter, what they can't be used for. It's a little bit easier. So it can't be used to refer to cases, statutes, constitution, legislative material, restatements, model codes, or regulations. They can be used for legislative hearings, court filings, books, pamphlets, reports, unpublished materials, non-print resources, periodicals, services, treaties, and international agreements, and so on. So just be sure you're looking at 4.2 to kind of make sure what you can and can't use supra and hereinafter for. So we use hereinafter, so supra. Let's talk about supra first. This is in section A. So we use supra when an authority has been fully cited before and we can use supra unless we need to use id when it's immediately preceding. So usually the supra form will start with the last name of the author, followed by a comma, and then the word supra. And then after that, you need to indicate how it's changed from the original citation. So this usually means adding a page number, right, or a section number or paragraph. We indicate the footnote where the full citation can be found, unless it's just in the same footnote. And then again, you have to indicate how the subsequent citation differs from the previous citation. For example, different page number. Right? So there's some examples here. So in footnote 27, you can see last name of the author, comma, supra in italics. And then note 16, we're indicating where the full citation occurred. This is, in this example, footnote 16 with a comma. And then we're indicating how the pin cite differs from that original citation. Here we're saying at 6. Footnote 28, we have the volume, we have the last name, supra, note 10 at 6. And footnote 30, we have supra note 29. So this is indicating the Keaton. And if there's more than one author, you would use or et al. You would eliminate that author's first name, but keep the last name et al. And then, so if the citation of a second item can be found in a volume of collected versions, and this may seem a little strange, but you would, so this is in the example 33 and 34, you would cite, again, the author, the article in, and then whatever volume it's in, and then where the article started and your pin cite. When there's a subsequent work that can be found in that same volume, you do the same thing. You put the name, the title of the article in, and then you're citing to the work it's in. And then this is when you put supra note, and in this case 33, referring back, and then you do a pin cite. So here and after. We use here and after when basically when you would normally have followed the rules if it would become cumbersome to cite that way using supra. And for example, if the name is really long, you can shorten it. Put here and after in brackets. The brackets come before a parenthetical, but after the citation. Right, so they have a couple of examples here. Right, the super long name, and then but in parentheticals, they've just put here and after hearings. So, and this is footnote 35. Notice that the here and after hearings follows the same convention. That is, it's in italics as what the citation would be. So you would want to keep that convention. And then another way to use here and after would be to distinguish two authorities. If it might become confusing to use the supra form. And they have an example here. Sometimes you might have a cite to a textbook and a horn book. They might even have the same name. So you would have to distinguish with a here and after. So this is all in Rule 4. Thanks, everybody. We'll take a quick break and move on to Rule 5.